In a rapid escalation of diplomatic tensions, Canada has issued an updated travel advisory for its citizens in India, urging them to remain vigilant and exercise caution. Canada claims that the move comes in response to their growing concerns over protests and negative sentiments towards their country on social media within India. Now, this is the second time that Canada updated its travel advisory in just 5 days. Now, the Indian visa services have been temporarily suspended by Canada. This development follows India's advisory issued just 5 days ago, cautioning its nationals and students residing in Canada. Meanwhile, security has also been tightened at Indian missions in Canada amid Khalistani supporters' protest. The spark for this heightened tension can be traced back to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's explosive allegations suggesting potential involvement of Indian agents in the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Now, for more on this, let me go across to my colleague Shivani, who joins us on the phone line. Shivani, a very good morning to you. Now, we are learning that Canada has once again updated its travel advisory for the second time within just 5 days. What all else we are gathering on this?
Have flared up after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had alleged that India was behind the killing of Khalistani terrorist Nijjar. And since then, we've seen a lot of reactions to what India has been doing to convey to Canada that India will just not tolerate any kind of terrorism and extremism. And we also saw how the protests continue in Canada, and especially in Toronto, outside the Indian consulate. And now what Canada has done, that they have now revised their travel advisory for India, and they have asked their citizens to remain vigilant because they say that there is an anti-Canada campaign or anti-Canada sentiment that's going on. And not only India, but a lot of other countries have come in and criticized Canada for whatever Justin Trudeau had said about India without any evidences, and also how he did not act enough to stop the protests, the pro-Khalistani protests in his country. So now he's getting a lot of reactions from not only India but a lot of other countries, and now they have revised the travel advisory because they realize that there is an anti-Canada campaign that's going on. So this is how the tensions between both the countries are escalating. The diplomatic issues are being dealt by India very strongly, and India has conveyed that in no condition the extremism will be tolerated for India, or anti-India campaigns will be tolerated, whether they are in India or outside Indian soil. And we also see how India has also issued an advisory saying that the consulate members, the diplomats, they also should remain vigilant because the protests are happening in Canada, and they have to be careful. So the visa system has also been postponed for the Canadians because the Indian diplomats were not able to work due to the security threats on the consulates, and that continues. So this is a reactionary measure that now Canada seems to have taken and advised their citizens to be careful from India.
Right. Well, I appreciate you, Shivani, for joining us live. Meanwhile, as both nations grapple with this diplomatic standoff, the international community watches closely. Support grows for India from its neighboring country, Sri Lanka, as they hit out by saying that terrorists have found a safe haven in Canada. Now, meanwhile, the US reacts to the strained ties and retreated that they are deeply concerned with Canadian Prime Minister's allegation. US further called for perpetrators to be brought to justice and urged the Indian government to cooperate in Canadian investigation.
We have always suffered, and some of the terrorists have found safe haven in Canada. Canadian Prime Minister has this way of just coming out with some outrageous allegations without any supporting proof. The same thing they did for Sri Lanka, a terrible, total lie about saying that Sri Lanka had a genocide. Everybody knows there was no genocide in our country. And I saw yesterday he had gone and given a rousing welcome to somebody who have associated with the Nazis in the past on the Second World War. So this is questionable.
We are deeply concerned by the allegations referenced by Prime Minister Trudeau. We remain in close contact with our Canadian partners, as the Secretary said on Friday. We believe it's critical that Canada's investigation proceed and that the perpetrators be brought to justice. And we have publicly and privately urged the Indian government to cooperate in the Canadian investigation.